Hey guys, welcome back to Mystical Alwyn. My name is Stephanie, and I am here to talk about Druidry and paganism with you guys. I wanted to cover some ritual building blocks this week because we've talked about Alwyn and we talked about kind of Druidry 101, but we haven't really gotten into what AODA Druids, which is kind of the organization that I'm affiliated with, what they specifically do as far as creating sacred space, which is the sphere of protection ritual, which they teach you in your first year, your candidate year. So we're going to go through the 7 Druid elements because there's 4 elements and 3 currents that you have to use in order to do the sphere protection ritual. So I figure we'll go over those, and we'll also go over sort of the Druid ritual building blocks, which are of course focusing on connecting with nature, honoring the seasons, and working with energy, which is something else we haven't really talked about much. So that's why I wanted to kind of get you guys toes wet with Alwyn, because it's a creative flow. It's sort of the tap of everything. If you can feel that, we're pretty sure you can feel energy. All right, let's get into it. So, the Druid elements: earth, air, fire, water, and then the 3 Druid elements above, below, and within, which we'll get to later in the video. But the first 4, earth, air, fire, and water, what I would recommend that you guys do before you really do a full ritual, before you're doing your sphere of protection, before you're really doing ritual work, is to try to connect with each of the 4 elements on their own, like to try to feel air. Usually you do this with, I do it in meditation, is just to feel air and what it feels like to feel the wind on my face. And usually there's colors associated with each element, like air I believe is yellow. That's usually what I think of. Water's blue, of course. Fire's red. Earth is green or brown. You know, there's some variation in the colors that you can use, but there's different ways to evoke different energies when you're working with elements. So those are some of the things that I would recommend that you do before you really try to put them all together, because it's going to be a lot. It takes a lot of focus for me as someone with ADHD to do it. So if you haven't worked with energy before, you might want to work with each element on its own before you try to kind of coalesce them all together in one ritual and then add in 3 more. So that would be where I would start, you guys, is with meditating on the 4 basic elements. All right, so I would recommend, I don't know, however often you meditate. Ideally, if you're meditating daily, maybe doing 1 element a day, maybe do a week of each element for like 4 weeks to really get you solid on the elemental piece of the sphere protection ritual before you put them all together. Because once you have those 4 mastered, you also have above, below, and within. And those are going to be your solar current, which is like the awakening intellect, and abstract emotion. It's kind of like the masculine energy. You've got your telluric current, which comes from the earth, which is more like your life force, your kind of vital love, life, passionate energy. That's like the feminine. And together they create the universe. And then you have the green ray, or the lunar current, which is generated in an individual and brings healing, creativity, and expanded awareness and illumination, once you're able to get all of that aligned. So there's a lot going on. I definitely recommend that you guys read this if you haven't, the Druidry Handbook. It's got a lot of detail in there about the different elements that the Druids use and what they kind of add up to. I've really, they give you correspondences if you really like that sort of information on different colors, directions, that sort of thing. It really gives you a lot of information. So the sphere of protection itself, I have modified mine because I'm ADHD, neurodivergent, and I'm also disabled physically. So I don't do the physical parts that you're supposed to do, the movement. I totally took the movement right out. I'm like, I can sit here and focus better than me trying to, hey Macarena, it's not for me. But practice however you practice. So that's just my modifications. All the stuff is meant to be modified the way that it works best for you. So bear that in mind. I took my computer, took the whole sphere of protection ritual and rewrote it, and took all of the movement cues that are in the candidate handbook out so that it's easier for me to read. But it's a big energy drain for me to do the sphere of protection. I don't know what it is. It's tiring for me. Maybe it's because I have chronic fatigue. I don't know. And maybe it's ADHD. I don't know. But it's hard for me. It's hard. Unless I do it fast. So I don't recommend doing it that way. I recommend going slow and taking your time with it. For some reason, I have to go really fast. So I'm not gonna do what I would do in my practice on camera. I guess it would be silly because it's so fast. I'm just like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm done. I'm there because I can put it together in my head faster than I can speak it. I'm obviously not the most articulate creature. Why I decided to make content, I don't know. But it comes with this nifty picture. Kind of gives you an idea of what you're creating. The sphere of protection is kind of where everything should align. It's probably backwards. Yeah. But this book is really useful. I recommend it if you don't have one, or if you're working with Obod or any of the other Druid groups. They all have stuff like this that has similar literature that kind of gives you the breakdown of what you're doing and why. But since you're here, I assume you're interested in AODA Druidry, because that's kind of where I landed. So those are your ritual building blocks before you put the sphere of protection together. Learn your elements. Now, once you've done all that and you work your sphere of protection, then what do? Well, it is itself a ritual. So you can always release the elements once you're done and just say, okay, I did it. That's my practice. Because you're supposed to practice it daily. And you're done. I do it as part of my meditation. Other things you can do within the circle are anything you want. You're in sacred space at that point. If you want to pray, if that's where you want to do your morning prayers and commune with your deity, offerings and libations and anything like that you want to give, this is a good time to do it. If you have any spell work you want to do, anybody that does spell work, I love the idea of like grinding herbs and burning them and doing all that stuff. But ideally, you don't have that stuff is not necessary for witchcraft. It's just helpful for the psychological benefit of having the physical thing. But if you can get the energy down, you don't really need all the herbs and stuff to do the spell work. So that stuff is all optional tools, ritual tools. I don't think we've even talked about ritual tools. I use a couple just because I've collected them over the years. I do have a wand, and I do have a little tiny cauldron, and I do have a mortar and pestle, and I have herbs and little charcoal discs for burning them, and various things that you acquire throughout years of practice, but they're not necessary. They're not needed. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of stuff to be a druid to do any of this stuff. So just, if somebody's trying to sell you a certain candle that'll do it for you, you don't need that. You can do it yourself. Trust me. If I can do it, you can do it. Something else I would recommend trying, if you haven't, is if you've established a spot outside where you visit regularly, which as a druid, and if you're working through a candidate year, you should have done this by now, or you should be doing this, is finding your spot outside is kind of a spot for you to be at least 15 minutes once a week. Ideally more than that, but I think that's the minimum. I know I can look out my windows right now. It's like everybody's struggling right now because it's winter and there's snow on the ground. But get your outside time. It's good for you. But you can also do this ritual, the sphere of protection, mentally outside at your spot. It's a great way to meditate and practice outside. You can also do meditation work within the sphere of protection if you want to meditate within it. So it's really however you feel you want to use the space and the time. And then once you're done, you kind of say thank you for your time, and you just kind of work everything backwards. The ones you called, you kind of call in reverse, whichever order you use. There is a prescribed order in the new candidate guide, the handbook. But druids kind of do whatever makes sense to you. If you want to start north, start north. If you want to start in the south, start in the south. I mean, it's 2026. I mean, if they're going to burn you at the stake, I mean, at least, you earned it if you do it. If you start in the east instead of the west, what are they going to do? There's not a council for this, so do whatever you feel in your heart is right. That's basically the bottom of Druidry in general, is just do what you feel in your heart is right. So I'll leave you guys with that for this one. I rambled long enough. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And next time, I think I'm going to go over, I might actually do an SOP. I haven't decided if I'm going to actually do a ritual on camera or not. It just feels so strange to do it on camera. I don't know why. It just does. But I may do that, or I may go into more detail on the different elements and stuff. So there's a lot of detail that I didn't go into, and correspondences. I could go through all that stuff if you guys really need it. It's all on the internet, really. But I could do that. I'm still tossing around a few ideas, so we will see, but I will catch you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.